Please, just give us 60 more days. My granddaughter, she's only 9.
I don't negotiate with people who can't afford lawyers.
Mr. Pierce, please, we have nowhere else
Not my problem.
Why are you so mean?
The question came from a small voice, a child's voice, and Raymond Pierce, the man who'd demolished 23 neighborhoods without blinking, froze.
What did you just say?
I asked why you're so mean.
The 9-year-old girl held up a hand-painted sign. Your daughter was 9. Just like me. Would Sophie want you to do this? Silence. Then the most feared millionaire in Chicago did something no one had ever seen him do. Welcome to VickyTale, where real stories meet real truth. If you're new here, please subscribe, like, and comment blessed, so more people can find this message. To my loyal subscribers, God bless you. You're the backbone of this channel. Please comment, like, and share so these stories reach those who need them. Please, Mr. Pierce, please, just 30 more days. No. Raymond Pierce didn't look up from his phone as he walked past the elderly woman in the hallway. She'd been waiting outside his office for 2 hours. Security should have removed her by now. My granddaughter, she's only 9 years old. If we lose our home, we have nowhere to go. Not my problem. He kept walking. She grabbed his arm. Big mistake. Raymond stopped, turned, stared down at her with eyes so cold they could freeze fire. Touch me again, and I'll have you arrested for assault. Security. 2 guards appeared immediately, pulling the sobbing woman away. You're a monster, she screamed as they dragged her toward the elevator. A monster. I hope you burn for what you're doing to us. Raymond adjusted his tie, walked into his office, closed the door on her screams. This was Tuesday. Just another Tuesday. Another elderly woman begging, another family about to lose everything, another neighborhood about to disappear. Raymond had heard it all before, felt nothing. He moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, 52 floors above Chicago. The city stretched endlessly below him, steel and glass and money. Raymond Pierce stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, 52 floors above Chicago, watching the city wake up beneath him. From up here, everything looked clean, orderly, beautiful. From up here, you couldn't hear the people crying. And he sipped black coffee, no sugar, no cream, nothing to soften the bitterness, and scrolled through the day's agenda on his tablet. 3 property acquisitions, 2 demolition permits finalized. 1 press conference to announce the Riverside Urban Renewal Project. Urban Renewal. That's what he called it in the press releases. The families being displaced called it something else entirely. But Raymond had stopped caring what they called it a long time ago. His phone buzzed. Text from his site manager, Riverside residents requesting meeting. Town hall tonight. Your presence requested. Raymond typed back, denied. Send legal team with final eviction notices. Non-negotiable. He set the phone down and turned back to the window. Pierce Development Corporation had made him a very wealthy man. Some estimated his net worth at $2.3 billion. Though Raymond kept his actual finances private, what everyone knew for certain was this: he had enough money to do whatever he wanted. And what he wanted was to erase Riverside from the map. Mr. Pierce, your 9 o'clock is here. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Send them in. The door to his office opened, all black marble and chrome, sharp and cold as his reputation, and 3 architects filed in nervously, portfolios clutched like shields. Raymond didn't invite them to sit. He never did. Show me the Riverside renderings. Jennifer, the lead architect, spread blueprints across his desk with trembling hands. She'd worked on 8 of Raymond's demolition projects. She knew how this went. 32-story luxury residential tower, sir. 240 units. Studios starting at $2,800 per month. Timeline? 60 days until demolition, as per the original. Make it 30. Jennifer's face went pale. Mr. Pierce, that's not enough time for the families to relocate. Some of these residents have lived there for 40 years. Then they've had 40 years to prepare for progress. His voice was ice. 30 days. Can you handle it, or should I find architects who can? Jennifer swallowed whatever protest was forming. Yes, sir. Good. Get out. They practically ran from the office. Raymond returned to his window, staring down at the city he was systematically rebuilding in his own image. People thought he demolished neighborhoods for profit, for greed. They were wrong. The money was just a convenient side effect. The real reason, the truth he'd never spoken out loud, was something darker. He was trying to erase a ghost, and he'd been failing for 15 years. Raymond Pierce wasn't always a monster. 20 years ago, he was a small-time contractor from the South Side. Worked with his hands, built playground equipment for neighborhood kids, fixed porches for elderly neighbors who couldn't afford to hire help. He was married to his high school sweetheart, Grace. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in Riverside, a working-class neighborhood with tree-lined streets, corner stores run by families who'd been there for generations, and a community garden where everyone grew vegetables and flowers and hope. They had one daughter, Sophie. Dark curls that never stayed in their ponytail, gap-toothed smile that could light up a room. Fearless in the way only children can be before the world teaches them what should be feared. She loved 3 things: strawberries, art class, and the Riverside community garden. Every Saturday morning, Raymond would take her to the garden. She had her own little plot, maybe 3 feet by 3 feet, where she grew strawberries with the intensity and focus of a surgeon performing a delicate operation. "Daddy, look! 3 new ones today." Raymond would kneel beside her in the dirt, sun warm on his back, watching his daughter's small hands gently check each plant for ripe fruit. "Those are beauties, baby girl. Best strawberries in the whole garden. Can we pick them?" "Not yet. Let them get a little redder. Tomorrow, maybe." Sophie would nod seriously, like he'd just shared profound wisdom, and Raymond would think, this is what success looks like. Not money, not power. This. Right here. And my daughter's joy over strawberries she grew herself. He'd been so certain that love and community and simple Saturday mornings in a garden would be enough to protect them from everything. He was wrong. It was a Tuesday, April 14th, 15 years ago. Raymond woke up to his alarm at 5:30 a.m. Grace still sleeping beside him, Sophie's soft breathing audible through the baby monitor they still kept in her room, even though she was 9 years old. His phone rang at 5:45. A client, kitchen renovation job across town, emergency. Pipe had burst overnight, flooded the space. If Raymond could get there today and fix it fast, the client would pay double. Money was tight. Grace's mother had been diagnosed with cancer 6 months earlier. Medical bills were piling up. Insurance covered some, but not enough. Never enough. So Raymond said yes. And he was getting dressed when Sophie appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Where are you going, Daddy?" "Emergency job, baby girl, but I'll be home for dinner." Can we go to the garden after school? The strawberries might be ready. Raymond hesitated. He looked at his daughter, messy hair, pajamas with cartoon characters, hope shining in her eyes. Then he looked at his phone, at the text from the client. Double pay if you can start by 7 a.m. Not today, Soph, but tomorrow, I promise. We'll spend the whole morning there. Pick every single strawberry. Her face fell. But Daddy, they might be overripe by tomorrow. Can I go by myself after school? Please? I'm big enough. I know the way. Raymond glanced at Grace, who'd woken up and was listening from the bed. She'll be fine, Grace said softly. It's 4 blocks. Mrs. Kim from next door will be at the garden. She can keep an eye on her. Raymond hesitated. Sophie was responsible, mature for her age. Riverside was safe. They knew everyone on the block. What could go wrong in 4 blocks? Okay, he said finally, but you go straight there and straight home. And you text me when you arrive and when you leave. Deal? Deal! Sophie threw her arms around him. Raymond hugged her tight, kissed the top of her head. I love you, baby girl. I love you too, Daddy. That was the last conversation they ever had. Raymond was 2 hours into the kitchen repair when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, was elbow deep in a pipe fitting, but something made him pause. Hello? Mr. Pierce. A woman's voice, calm, professional, and somehow that made it worse. This is Memorial Hospital. There's been an accident involving your daughter. You need to come immediately. The pipe wrench fell from his hands, clattered against the tile floor. The sound echoed in his ears like a gunshot. What happened? His voice didn't sound like his own. Is she okay? What happened? She was struck by a vehicle while crossing Riverside Avenue. She's in surgery now. That's all I can tell you over the phone. You need to come. Raymond didn't remember the drive to the hospital, didn't remember leaving the job site, didn't remember getting in his truck, didn't remember the route he took or the traffic lights he ran. All he remembered was one thought, repeating like a broken record, please God, please God, please God, not her, not her, not her. Take me, take anything, take everything, but please not her. Grace was already there when he arrived. Standing in the surgical waiting room, mascara streaked down her face, phone clutched in white-knuckled hands. They fell into each other's arms. What happened? Raymond choked out. What happened? She was crossing Riverside Avenue. Grace's voice was hollow, shock making her words robotic. Go into the garden. A car ran the red light. Driver was texting, didn't even brake. Raymond felt his legs give out. A nurse caught him, guided him to a chair. Where's the driver? His voice was a growl. Where is he? He fled the scene. Police are looking for him. Sophie died 3 days later. Internal bleeding they couldn't stop. Trauma too severe for her small body to survive. 9 years old. Raymond was holding her hand when the machine stopped beeping and started making that long, flat sound that meant everything was over. Or he'd sat beside her bed for 72 hours straight, hadn't eaten, hadn't slept. Just held her small broken hand and begged God to trade places with her. God said no. They held the funeral on a Saturday, the day they were supposed to pick strawberries together. Raymond stood in front of a casket that was too small. Why did they make caskets that small? Why did that have to be a thing that existed? And listened to people say words that meant nothing. She's in a better place. God needed another angel. She's not suffering anymore. Words, Just words, meaningless sounds that were supposed to be comforting but just made him want to scream. Grace sobbed through the entire service. Her mother held her up, physically supporting her weight. But Raymond didn't cry. He just stood there, dry-eyed, numb, feeling like he'd died too, but his body forgot to stop breathing. They tried to stay in Riverside. For 6 months, they tried to pretend life could continue, but everywhere Raymond looked, he saw Sophie. The corner store where she'd buy candy with her allowance. The owner would always slip her an extra piece when she wasn't looking. The school playground where she'd learned to pump her legs on the swings all by herself, so proud of her independence. The community garden where her strawberry patch sat untended, fruit rotting on the vine because Raymond couldn't bring himself to go there, couldn't bear to see what she'd planted and would never harvest. Grace was drowning. "I can't breathe here," she told him one night, tears streaming down her face. "Every street corner is a memory I can't survive. We have to leave. Please. We have to leave." So they moved, bought a small house in the suburbs with the modest life insurance payout. It covered the down payment and Sophie's funeral expenses, with barely anything left over. Except the ghost wasn't in Riverside. The ghost was inside Raymond. The marriage lasted 2 more years, but those years changed Raymond in ways he didn't recognize. He couldn't go back to small contracting jobs, couldn't build playground equipment for children who weren't Sophie. So he started taking bigger commercial projects, worked 18-hour days because going home meant sitting alone with his grief. His big break came when he met Martin Kellerman, a ruthless commercial developer who saw something useful in Raymond's emptiness. A man with nothing to lose who'd work harder than anyone else. "E-sentiment is for people who can afford it," Kellerman told him over whiskey one night. "You want to make real money? You buy cheap, displace the residents legally, build luxury, and don't look back." Raymond became Kellerman's protege, learned the business, learned which politicians to fund, which permits to fast-track, which neighborhoods to target. 4 years later, Kellerman died of a heart attack, left no heirs. Raymond partnered with Kellerman's investors, took over the company, and renamed it Pierce Development Corporation. That was 8 years ago. Now he was worth over $2 billion and had demolished 23 neighborhoods. But the money didn't fill the void. Nothing did. Grace left on what would have been Sophie's 12th birthday. "I lost my daughter," she said, tears streaming down her face as she packed her suitcases. "But I also lost my husband. I can't keep losing you every single day, Raymond. I can't watch you destroy yourself and pretend I don't see it. I'm not destroying myself. I'm building a business." "You're not building anything," Grace's voice broke. "You're tearing down neighborhoods like you're trying to tear down the memory of her. But it doesn't work that way, Raymond. It doesn't work." "Then leave," he said flatly. "Come with me, please. We'll go to therapy together. We'll heal together." "There is no healing from this." Grace stared at him, at this stranger who used to be her husband. "I'm choosing to live, Raymond. I'm choosing to honor Sophie by not letting her death destroy me too." She picked up her suitcases and walked to the door, paused, turned back one last time. "Man, Sophie would be ashamed of what you've become." Then she left. Raymond stood at the window and watched her car pull away. Felt nothing. The next morning, he scheduled his first demolition, the building where Sophie was hit. Raymond's first demolition project was deliberate. He identified the 3-story apartment building on Riverside Avenue. the exact spot where Sophie was struck. 40 families lived there. He bought it, condemned it, evicted everyone, demolished it within 90 days. Watched the wrecking ball swing, watched the walls crumble, watched the place where his daughter died disappear into dust and rubble. And for the first time since the funeral, he felt something. Not joy, not satisfaction, relief. Brief, fleeting relief, like the first hit of a drug he didn't know he needed. The building where Sophie died no longer existed. And somehow, impossibly, that made the memory feel slightly less sharp. So he kept going. Bought the whole block, demolished it, built luxury condos in its place. The profit was substantial, his investors were thrilled. But profit wasn't the point. The point was erasure. If he could tear down every building that reminded him of that day, of his failure, of his choice to prioritize work over his daughter, of the guilt that lived in his chest like a cancer, maybe he could tear down the memory itself. So he expanded. Another block, another neighborhood, another community erased. People protested. Families begged, activists organized, Raymond buried them in legal fees they couldn't afford. Politicians tried to intervene. City council members called meetings. Raymond made campaign donations they couldn't refuse. He was unstoppable, ruthless, cold, everything he'd never been when Sophie was alive. 12 years later, Raymond Pierce had demolished 23 neighborhoods across Chicago, displaced over 4,000 families, made hundreds of millions of dollars, built an empire on other people's suffering, and he felt nothing but the vast, howling emptiness of a man who'd traded his humanity for the illusion of control. They called him the bulldozer, not because he owned construction equipment, but because he bulldozed through human beings like they were obstacles, like they were inconvenient, like they didn't matter. And maybe somewhere deep in the part of himself he'd locked away, Raymond agreed. Maybe people didn't matter, because the person who'd mattered most was gone. And all that was left was rage and guilt and the compulsion to keep destroying, keep moving, keep running from the truth he couldn't face. Sophie died because he wasn't there, and no amount of demolished buildings would change that. But tonight, this cold Tuesday night in October, 15 years after Sophie's death, Raymond made a decision that would set everything in motion. He sat in his penthouse office, staring at the blueprints for the Riverside project. The community garden where Sophie had grown strawberries was marked with a red X, scheduled for demolition in 30 days. It was the last piece of her childhood still standing, the final ghost that needed to be erased. Raymond picked up his phone and called his site manager. "Move up the timeline. I want demolition in 15 days. Sir, the residents still have time according to the eviction notices. I don't care. 15 days. Make it happen." He hung up, looked out at the city lights stretching endlessly before him, and felt nothing but the hollow certainty that once that garden was gone, once the last reminder of Sophie was erased, maybe, finally, the pain would stop. But Raymond didn't know that right now, in a small house 3 blocks from that garden, a 9-year-old girl named Ruby Hammond was lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, clutching a hand-drawn picture of sunflowers, making a plan. And in 15 days, Ruby Hammond would do something that would change Raymond Pierce's life forever. She would refuse to move. She would stand in front of his bulldozer, and she would force him to face the one truth he'd been running from for 15 years. Destroying the world doesn't heal you. It just makes you a destroyer. If you're still here, drop a comment right now. Tell me, have you ever watched someone destroy themselves while claiming they were fine? Hit that like button if this story is hitting too close to home, because we're just getting started. Part 2 is coming, and that's where Ruby Hammond enters the story. That's where the bulldozer finally stops. That's where a 9-year-old girl with a hand-painted sign does what no one else could do. She saves a man who thought he was beyond saving.